Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. It's pre-match build-up time once again, and Liverpool are playing Maribor in the Champions League tomorrow night. In what is, all things considered, I think it's safe to say this is a must-win game. You know, I said in the post-match video for the game against Man United, Liverpool can get away with a point in that game as much as we wanted to win and as much as we probably should have got one under the circumstances. We can get away with a point against one of the Premier League's very, very top sides. But against Maribor, a team that really we should be beating in a Champions League campaign that is already looking very, very shaky. You know, we've drawn our last two games and this is Maribor, you know, no disrespect to them, but they are effectively the whipping boys of this group, really. They were the fourth seed. No one really knows who they are, let's be honest. So if Liverpool are to get 3 points in any games in their Champions League group campaign, these are going to be the two games where they should absolutely definitely get them. And given, like I said, how the Champions League campaign's gone so far, we really need to win this if we want to get it back on track and make sure we qualify for those knockout stages. However, going into this game, I think a lot of us are fairly worried. I mean, the Man United game went okay. Like I said, we should have really won the game, but we still put in a pretty decent performance. And there was a suggestion that maybe we'd got over the problems that we'd had before the international break during the 2 weeks off that Jurgen Klopp and his team will have had to kind of assess what was going on at the club. But I think there are a few main worries going into this game that are still affecting Liverpool fans. And for me, the main one is the fact that I don't think our midfield is really going to be creative enough for this game, because with the lack of Sadio Mane through injury that he got over the international break, it's still likely that Phil Coutinho could play in that left wing role that we have been seeing him in so far this season. And when he does that, the first choice midfield three is Emre Can, Jordan Henderson and Jorginho Wijnaldum. And while that midfield was fine against Man United, you know, it's very workmanlike, very physically strong. They really bossed the centre of the park, and that's what helped Liverpool dominate the game. They weren't really creating that much. It's what I said in the post-match video, and I can forgive that against Man United because the main priority was that they did boss the midfield. They kept things under control. Against a team like Maribor, you want your midfielders to be getting forward, joining the attack so we can get as many bodies forward and joining that attack as we possibly can. And with those three players, I just can't really see that happening. And there is a possibility that Phil Coutinho could start in that midfield role. I'll come on to who exactly I think is going to start the game in a little bit, but it does worry me ever so slightly that that is how Liverpool could line up, and it could affect how we try and play this game. And second of all, we now know through Jurgen Klopp's press conference that Loris Karius has kept his spot as Liverpool's Champions League goalkeeper. And I think a lot of people are starting to go off the idea of this goalkeeper rotation thing because it has unsettled our defence a lot. We saw that in September when we played 3 different goalkeepers at various points during that month, and the defence never really got itself settled. And given that the defence looked a lot better in the game against Man United, they dealt with everything that was thrown with them incredibly well, and I was really, really impressed with how they played. You know, players like Joe Gomez and Dejan Lovren especially stood out for me in that game. I just don't see why you'd want to unsettle things by then changing your goalkeeper around. And while I understand the goalkeeper rotational policy, and I do want to see Loris Karius get minutes for Liverpool because there is still the chance that he could be our long-term solution in the goalkeeping department, I just think given the current situation and how much of a problem the defence has been for Liverpool so far this season, and the fact that it looks like that might finally be being solved after the Man United game, I just think Jurgen Klopp should probably put it on hold just for a little bit at least. And I would like to see Simon Mignolet start in this game because also, let's be honest, he is our best goalkeeper at the moment. I still think Loris Karius could come good. I still think he could become Liverpool's first choice goalkeeper. But at the moment, right now, Simon Mignolet is ahead of him. He plays better. He looks much more composed. He relaxes the defence around him more than Loris Karius does. But sadly, that's just not going to happen. Karius is going to start this game and we just have no choice but to get behind him. So let's hope that the fans in the stands will do that. So on to how I think the team's actually going to line up. Like I said, it will be Loris Karius in goal for this game. And then the back four, I get the feeling that it might be Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back in this game because we know how Jurgen Klopp likes to rotate with those players. He said in his press conference today that he doesn't necessarily want to rotate too much for this game because it is a hugely important match. But Gomez and Trent Alexander-Arnold have been rotated fairly freely throughout this campaign so far, kind of sometimes adjusting to the opponent. You know, if we want to be more attacking, we go with Alexander-Arnold. If we want to be more defensive, like maybe we wanted to be against United, we go with Joe Gomez. And I think given that Maribor are technically lesser opposition, I think it makes sense to have Alexander-Arnold in that right-back role. And I just think for the sake of rotation as well, it would make sense to play him in this game. As for the two centre-backs, I think it's going to be Matip and Lovren. Both of them played very well against Manchester United. And like I said, you don't want to unsettle the defence when it's when there's a suggestion that they might start to be playing well. So I'd stick with those two centre-backs. In a similar mindset, I'd still go with Moreno as well at left-back. There is a shout for Andrew Robertson because obviously he is still knocking around and we've been seeing a little bit of him at various stages of the campaign so far. But Moreno, I think, certainly suits the Champions League games better because he's got a bit more experience on the European stage. And then the midfield, I think it's going to be Henderson in that number 6 role, as he has been so far this season. He's been a little bit up and down with his form. Sometimes he has a brilliant game. I think the best game I've seen him have so far this season was Leicester away in the league. He was absolutely fantastic in that match. Had a bit of an iffy one against Manchester United, but I think he's still a fairly safe pair of hands. You go with him in that role. Then I think the other two midfielders are going to be Phil Coutinho and Emre Can, because I think, like I said earlier, the midfield needs more creativity, so I think it would make sense to start Coutinho in that slightly more withdrawn role where he can help push the midfield forward and pull the strings from a little bit deeper if Maribor do decide to sit back as well. And then I've gone with Emre Can over Georginio Wijnaldum simply because Wijnaldum, he just doesn't perform well away from home. I know it is a bit of a cliche. Obviously, he's got that awful goal scoring record where he hasn't scored a single goal away from home since he has arrived in England, but I just think he doesn't perform that well, and I think Emre Can, as much as Wijnaldum actually played better than Emre Can in the Man United game, I think Emre Can is still certainly the better player and always seems to be getting himself up for these European matches, so I'd go with him. And then the front three, I think it's going to be Salah, Firmino, and then Oxlade-Chamberlain. Oxlade-Chamberlain obviously didn't have much of a chance to make an impression against Manchester United. Came on with about 15 minutes left, but what he did do, he did pretty well. I mean, he was very direct. He looked to get forward. He looks like he's improved from his previous performances for the club so far, and obviously that's understandable because he's had very little time to settle in, and I think people have been way too quick to judge Oxlade-Chamberlain. Like I said, when he signed, you can't judge him until January. I think that it's only then when I think he will have had enough time to adapt to life at Liverpool, to adapt to Jurgen Klopp's playing style, and then we can start to judge him. But it looks like he might start to be kicking on a little bit and bringing the performances that we kind of expect given his absolutely massive price tag for someone who is really a squad player. So I think you put Oxlade-Chamberlain in that wing role to kind of replace Sadio Mane, and hopefully he can put in a decent performance in this game. So taking a look at Maribor then, obviously we don't know that much about them because the Slovenian league is not the most publicised league in the world, but we have seen a little bit of them in their European campaign so far this season, and they've been all right. I mean, they've got 1 point, which from games against Shakhtar Donetsk and Sevilla isn't too bad. Obviously, they got their point at home to Shakhtar, so there's a suggestion that maybe, not Shakhtar, what am I talking about? Spartak Moscow, that's who's in Liverpool's group, but they got that point at home against Spartak Moscow, so there's a suggestion that maybe, you know, they're a different beast at home as they are away in European football, because obviously they lost their game away to Sevilla 3-0, they didn't really put in a brilliant performance in that game, so perhaps Liverpool should be a little bit wary that Maribor will be a lot better at home than maybe they'll be expecting. As for Maribor's domestic form, they've been all right, they've got 28 points from 12 games so far, so I think they're unbeaten. However, their main problem at the moment is that they have got quite a few misfiring forwards, which as Liverpool fans sounds like a very familiar problem. So it's not all perfect at Maribor at the moment, but I certainly wouldn't expect Liverpool to be complacent going into this game because, as I've said countless times before on this channel, there are no easy teams to beat in the Champions League. Teams get into the Champions League by being the best team in their country, and you know, even if that country doesn't necessarily have that much good football going on there, they've still got a kind of winning mentality, and that will affect how they play. So Liverpool should be careful in this game, I think. So despite that and all the worries that I've mentioned earlier, I am still optimistic that Liverpool can win this game. They can get 3 points and they will get their Champions League group stage campaign finally going. So with that in mind, here are my 3 reasons why we will beat Maribor. First of all, I think Phil Coutinho will be absolutely vital in this game, especially if he's playing in that withdrawn midfield role where he can really start to control the game and pull those strings and help out the players that play in front of him. I mean, we saw in flashes against Manchester United how good he was. There were always moments where he threatened to just go past 4 players and completely change the game, and I think against Maribor, who, as much as like I said, I don't want to disrespect them, they are lesser opposition than Man United, he will get a lot of opportunities to do that, and I think it's fairly safe to say that Phil Coutinho will be the only world-class player on the pitch in the game against Maribor, and hopefully that should affect how he plays and help Liverpool get those 3 points. And second of all, as much as Liverpool are going through a difficult patch at the moment, we're not that bad. We're really not as bad as everyone says. I mean, it's become a little bit of a cliche now because it happens so often. But Liverpool have been a little bit unlucky with their results. They've put in good performances. They've deserved to win games. I mean, just look at the expected goal stats from all the games from now until the start of September. Apart from maybe the Man City game, we've pretty much deserved to win every single match we've played based on the expected goal stats. So it shows that Liverpool have been dominating games. They have been performing well. It's just that things haven't quite clicked in the forward department. The strikers just haven't quite been putting their chances away. So even though there's every chance that problem could continue into this game, I'm just hoping that it doesn't. And I think Liverpool, like I said, as much as we have struggled recently, we're not that bad. And Maribor really are a team that we should be beating. And finally, with this being a European match, you'd expect Liverpool to bring their absolute A game. I mean, yes, it's Maribor, so they're not going to be as excited as they maybe would have been against Sevilla or anything like that. Or maybe they were in the Hoffenheim game where there was obviously a huge amount at stake. But we saw against Manchester United just how much Liverpool's players psych themselves up for big games. There were so many players like Joe Gomez as well, who put in one of the best performances he's ever put in for Liverpool. I know he's not, I don't expect him to start in this game, but like there are a lot of players at Liverpool like that. And even though it is only Maribor, I still think that with it being a European match and with, like I said, a lot riding on it because Liverpool really need to get a win in this game, I just expect us to put our performance up a notch, really kick things into gear and show the world what we're really about, I suppose. So that is all for today's video. Sadly, there won't be a FIFA predictor for this match because Maribor are not on FIFA 18, so sorry about that. But the first FIFA 18 predictor on this channel will be out later on in the week for the game against Spurs, so do stick around for that. But until then, thank you guys very much for watching. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're new around here, check out I've Gone Out of Focus, give us a sec. Ooh, there we go. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're new around here, check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days as well, and I'll see you in a bit for the post-match video after the game against Maribor. Bye for now.